and I came down here and went fox hunting with my parents brought me with Wilbur Hubbard. And I think I was about 10, and I remember it very well. A pony that I was riding took off and headed down some sand road for it was either the Chesapeake Bay or the Chester River, I'm not sure which. Took off, ran down the road, stopped at the edge of the water and dumped me right in the water. So that may have been fortuitous for a future indoctrination back in Chestertown some 60 years later. I thought initially it was not a good idea. And Larry Culp and Ed Nordberg talked me into it. And I think it's been a very interesting assignment from my point of view and my family's point of view. It's really been great and very interesting and lots of nice people. And to understand a little bit about Chestertown before you get here, if you were to come in cold turkey, I think it would take you a while to figure out kind of how it all works. But having had a prior brush with it, I think I understand it a bit better. I would credit Jim Price for really getting me involved at the board level back when Dora Sarah was a junior. She graduated in '94. She was a junior in '93 when I first came on the board. Jim said, it's time for me to get off, time for you to get on. I said, well, Jim, I went to Princeton University. I don't really know much about Washington College, but I'm sure whatever you say is true, and I'll give it a try. And I became fascinated right away. He said, if you don't believe me, talk to Al Decker, who was a friend of my father's, Mr. Decker. And so I did. I asked him, what's it like serving on this board? He said, well, let me tell you something. He said, I've been on the Hopkins board, I've been on obviously the Black & Decker board and some other boards, bank boards, whatnot, but Washington College is the most fascinating board that I've been on ever, so go for it. I think everybody's well-intended. Certainly Chris is a very well-intended person, and I share his observation that when you take on a new job that you don't have a whole lot of familiarity with, that you're drinking from a fire hose, and particularly in the first 6 months, and you're trying to figure out who's who and how decisions are made, and that's not easy, particularly when there's no playbook. Nobody tells you anything, so you figure it all out for yourself. And there are loads of examples of towns and where the public and the private sector get together. As you know, I'm from Baltimore, and I watched what happened in those days with Mayor Schaefer and the Greater Baltimore Committee, and Walter Sondheim, who was on the board of the college here for a while. And some wonderful things happened because they were well-intended people, and they all had the best interests of Baltimore involved, and they knew if they didn't do something that the place was sinking into the Inner Harbor, and that it really had to be transformed. Yes, we got a response, not entirely to everybody's satisfaction, and I'd say on the area, all Stepne and all that is we're working together closely on that, and I think that's very satisfactory. Some other parts of town, less satisfactorily so. But if I put myself in Chris's shoes, I understand on one particular property that we're concerned with that the college owns and would like to be rezoned. And Chris says, well, if I do that, then that means that all the prior zoning requests for the last 100 years that we turned down would come back to bite us if we did a special favor for the college. So I understand that. Would the value of the property go up? I think, again, depending on all sorts of things, I think this is correct to say that the sort of low-rise, in effect, suburban office space here it's just, there's too much of it, way too much of it already. So that's what it's zoned for at the moment. That probably doesn't make a lot of sense. Now, there's probably flexibility in the college as an institutional zone, could use it for something, but it's across whatever that route is, 291, I think it is. Will the students be in danger of walking across the road? Yes. And so what do you do about that? And what are the costs involved? And, so there, an awful lot of dialogue has to take place. I don't think just by a stroke of the pen of rezoning it is going to solve any problems. I think you want to be very aware of really very aware of what Chris is dealing with, and be very aware of what the college is dealing with. And that can only take place through dialogue. No, the answer is there isn't yet a master plan, but it's in the works. And it's being looked at as as contiguous pieces of property. There are three owners, that primarily the town, the college. Dick Goodall owns the old mansion there. And we're working very closely. The college and Dick Goodall and the town are working closely on figuring out the highest and best use of all of that. Because, and it's ever so much simpler if you have only a few property owners. That could be, as Chris says, transformational to the town if you extend the town out the grid and make it just imagine if that could be made a pedestrian-friendly, college-friendly, town-friendly residential area with a little bit of retail sprinkled here and there. It could be a model community for the Eastern Shore. And imagine if you had a development in Stepne that might include some faculty housing, perhaps a dorm fairly close by, and a real much more close integration of the college and the town. And I think it could be a really, really attractive community. It wouldn't be just a retirement home. That it would be a active community that would encompass a lot of different age groups and a lot of different interests. I think it's a natural. I'm very confident that it will be done just right, and that it'll take some time, but it'll be done right. And the other good part is the college has no debt on it. Dick Goodall has no debt on it. So it's not as if you need to do something quickly to service the debt, because there is no debt. A small liberal arts college in today's world has to be vibrant, has to be of a certain size, and has to be vibrant to survive. There'll be a lot that don't survive. So that just has to be kept in mind. And I'm sure the town will be all for it, because if Washington College were not to survive, that would not be a benefit for the town. So the stakes are pretty high. Some people said, well, I'm exactly the same age as Dr. Toll was when he came here, but there's a huge, massive difference between Dr. Toll and myself. Dr. Toll was a giant in education, and his affection for Washington College was real. And he once told me, he said, I've been with these large research universities all my life. He said, but this, Washington College, is the best way to teach kids. But it's very difficult to finance. So I'm dedicated to help in any way that I can to keep it all going and help with the fundraising and that sort of thing. but I am not a academic entrepreneur in any way, and I wouldn't have any idea about the future as far as online stuff is concerned, or social media, whatever. As I was saying to somebody in an earlier meeting, I did learn how to text about 6 months ago because of my grandchildren. And but I'm not a forward thinker in that regard. No, I just think that the glass is more than half full, and it would be the height of stupidity and the height of unfortunateness to see this current momentum lose any steam. I just think it's a moment when some good things can really happen, and so just keep at it and hope for the best.